All right, today we are kicking off a Fox and Friends 7-day series on heroin and drug addiction in general. What was once an inner-city problem is turning into a national epidemic. Heroin addiction hitting the heart of America, and the victims are people you wouldn't even expect, maybe the person next door or within your family. From 2002 to 2013, the rate of heroin-related overdose deaths nearly quadrupled, with more than 8,200 people dying from heroin overdoses in 2013 alone. Our next guest is a suburban wife and mom who lost her husband to the addiction 12 years ago, and this month, by the way, and one of her children is currently getting help for drug abuse as well, who has already gone through rehab. Alyssa Ciambra joins us right now, live from Columbus, Ohio. Alyssa, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. First off, when people talk about heroin addiction, and that's somebody else's problem, what was your thought before it hit your family, and what's your thought about it now?
Before it hit my family, I didn't think it would happen to anybody, regular run-of-the-mill family. And when it hit my family, I think we found out that it hits everyone in the United States, any walk of life. My husband was the normal baseball coach, soccer dad, great husband, and addiction can hit anyone. It started with prescription and led to a heroin addiction and death.
So when he had the back problem, he gets prescribed medicine. You said they gave it to him like it was candy without any really possibly knowing or letting you know the danger of addiction. Were you able to jump in between when you saw the downside begin to happen? And what was his reaction when you did?
I think when I saw it, I was in denial at first. I didn't want to believe. I'm a nurse. I didn't want to believe that my husband could be addicted. By the time he went for treatment, he was a full-blown heroin addict. And then trying to find treatment is hard also. Trying to find insurance to cover a program, a 2-week program, doesn't help heroin addiction.
So you got him into a program, and of course 2 weeks, you're not going to break any pattern,
no
matter how small or big, in 2 weeks. And if you don't have $1 million check to write and send to some luxurious place up in Malibu, California, you're stuck like everybody else with your wrestling with your insurance company, trying to say, I can't handle my husband when he gets out. He's definitely not better yet, and nobody thinks he is.
No, and actually, after he got out of a 2-week program, he actually went to a place in Antigua called Crossroads that we paid for out of pocket. But when you leave a 30-day program, it's the same thing. There's no help. They give you a stack of papers and tell you to go to meetings. And it's a long-term disease of addiction that needs more treatment than even 30 days. So
this happens when your husband loses his life, sadly. You don't tell anybody. You're embarrassed by it. But you're not over it.
Yes.
You remarried. You also have a child. And your child is somebody that gets prescribed Adderall, I guess, for oftentimes that's ADD. But he or she possibly gets addicted at around 16 to what?
Well, what happens with the children, they start smoking marijuana and then can turn into addiction also. I have 3 children, one in recovery from addiction now, thank God. And I'm remarried to a husband that is a recovering addict of 30 years. So addiction is everywhere in my family.
Wow. So that happens, and your child goes through rehab, still didn't snap out of it. You had to do tough love and kick that child out. How tough was that?
Tough love is different for everyone. Kicking a child out of the house is tough. It's not what is easy to do.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. And, you know, long-term, the main thing is treatment long-term for addiction. I had to kick my husband out of the house. I put him out. It didn't work. He came back and still was addicted to drugs.
But I think it's amazing when you go through this, you don't really know who to talk to, and no one can really understand what the addiction does. They must have some type of weakness. One thing you do find, too, is if somebody is ADD, a lot of times they look to self-medicate through some type of marijuana use or some other type of drug, and then all of a sudden the cycle gets twice as bad.
Right.
So there are people that are more susceptible than others.
Well, and if you have a parent that's an addict, you have a chance of your children being addicted to drugs. And you want to stop that cycle, anything you can do to stop that cycle of addiction. It's a disease. Addiction is a disease, and we want to stop the cycle, and we want to be proactive. And now, 12 years later, I can actually speak out and say my husband was a heroin addict. He was a wonderful man. I loved him, but he needed help, and that's the problem. We have to get help for people that are addicted to drugs and insurance companies, and you can't put these people just on the street. They need help. They need long-term help.
Right, and the people in rehab knows it, and the victims know it, the family members know it. There's a disconnect between the recovery, the efforts to make recovery, and the payments made. Because not only are you going broke because that parent is no longer productive, you're going broke because you're writing checks for bills they can't pay and the rehab they can't afford. It's an unbelievable cycle. But you know what? Yeah, you helped so many people by talking about it, because you look like an everyday American, a nurse trying to make it in this country, and next thing you know, you're in that spiral. Lisa Sambria, thanks so much.
Thank you.